Hello, my name's Tom and today I'm going to be talking about the Quatermass Experiment. Or, if you're American, the Creeping Unknown.
Creeping Unknown!
Well, this film was released in 1955 and it stars Richard Wordsworth as Victor Caroon and Brian Donlevy as Quatermass.
There's a whole new world out there, a wilderness, uncharted. And he's been there and come back.
One of the great things about this film is it gets straight into the action. Immediately, as soon as the film starts, there's stuff happening. There's panic, there's hysteria, there's police cars pulling up, fire engines, there's a huge set piece which is this big crashed rocket in a cornfield. Within the first couple of minutes of the film, it's already well underway and we're hooked. And it seems really serious, it's played very straight, like it's a real incident, and it tries to make you believe that this is what would happen. And there's even stuff on the radio and in the news, pre-Night of the Living Dead. So it's quite an early use of that sort of almost documentary style look. The film is set before people went into space, and so the experiment in the Quatermass Experiment is sending people into space. And the film starts and the experiment's already happened. So the film is actually about the repercussions of the experiment that has gone wrong. Victor Caroon is the astronaut, he comes out, he's very sick, but worse than sick. There's something seriously wrong with him. And this is where the horror starts to come in, because it is a horror film as much as it is a sci-fi film.
It's Mr. Caroon!
Victor,
Get him into the air.
He tries to speak, he can't really speak, he tries to, and he manages to say, "Help me," and that's all he manages to say, and for the rest of the film, he doesn't say anything. In the way that he plays the part, it's almost as if he's paralysed. And the only part he has any control over is his face, because you can see the distress in his face, you can see that he doesn't want to do any of the things that he's doing, but his body is somehow moving beyond his control. It's a very sinister and very horrific film. It's the film that made Hammer big, and it's easy to see why after this film they went on to make all the gothic horror films. Quatermass is excellent. A character because he's vindictive, he's like an anti-hero, ruthless, incredibly ruthless and very unremorseful.
You've destroyed him like you've destroyed everything else you've touched, Ken.
There's no room for personal feelings in science, Judith.
He's quite a vindictive type of character, he doesn't get on well with people. And I think it's a shame that in some of the later Quatermass films, although I still really like them, like Quatermass 2, he's a lot nicer. And I sort of think, no, he's lost his rough edges that he had in this film, which I really like. And the police sergeant is simple, but polite. And Quatermass is intelligent, scientific, but rude. And the interplay between them works really well. And the first time they meet, they're both stood up either side of the policeman's desk, and the policeman asks him to sit, and Quatermass says no. And then the policeman has to explain, well, I can't sit down until you sit down because that would be impolite. And then slightly later in the film, the policeman goes around to see Quatermass, and as soon as he comes through the door, Quatermass just sits down. Which I think is really good because it just shows Quatermass's attitude to all this politeness and etiquette. He doesn't care about any of it, he just wants to get to the point. Yeah, so the space rocket looks quite cliche, cheesy type space rocket, but then this is before people have been into space. So, you know, it's sort of around similar time of Destination Moon. It's sort of similar sci-fi of what would it be like, what will it be like when we actually go into space, because we're very much on the track of about to go into space, what's going to happen. The bit that doesn't work, that's a bit of a horror cliche, is this bit with a little girl playing with a doll, and that sort of a bit feels a bit shoehorned in, you know, and it's like the little girl from Frankenstein, but not as good.
Is it something to do with your eye? Look, I'll just take a look. I won't hurt it, I promise.
It's a monster transformation film in which you don't see the transformation. You see an astronaut looking very ill, and then at the very end of the film you see the monster. You don't see any of the between stage. Instead, you just see a trail of slime, like a slug trail that they follow, and you hear an eyewitness account which sounds awful, but actually I quite like it. Although the whole film is played very straight, you know, like it's real, there is one comedy scene in it, and that is the scene where the person is giving the eyewitness account of the monster. It's this lady who's been on the drink and starts telling this crazy story about this thing in the street, and all the policemen are just rolling their eyes like, oh, this again, you know, like she's a regular. And then the police sergeant starts to realise what she's talking about and thinks, actually no, I think you did see this. And then she's really shocked by the fact that she actually did see it. I think she says, you mean so it wasn't a gin goblin? No, you really saw it this time, Rosie. And she just collapses. This might be of interest to horror fans anyway, is that found footage films, right? People often say, oh, the first found footage film is Blair Witch Project, and then people say, well, no, it's Cannibal Holocaust.
But the Blair Witch Project itself was by no means the first found footage film. In fact, the film itself owes a debt to earlier films like the controversial Italian film Cannibal Holocaust.
I'm going to say it's the Quatermass Experiment. It's played very much in the same way that Paranormal Activity does it, in that there's an extended scene in the film, it's quite a tense scene, where they all sit around and watch this found footage that was found on a camera inside the spacecraft. And like in Paranormal Activity, there's nothing happening in the footage. But you, the viewer, know that something is going to happen. And so you're waiting for something to happen, and so the tension builds, and it's like, and it's exactly the same as Paranormal Activity, except in 1955. This is one of the best 1950s sci-fi films. And when I think of 1950s sci-fi, I don't think of this film. I think of Atomic Mutation, I think of giant animal movies, Them, Tarantula, you know, and I think of the Flying Saucer movies, and things like It Came From Outer Space, Forbidden Planet, The Incredible Shrinking Man, you know, all those American radioactive type movies. This is one that never comes up. I think maybe because it's British and because it's more gearing towards horror. It surprises me that more people don't know about it and love it as much as I do. It's a fantastic film, definitely worth checking out. I realise this is the first review I've done in quite some time on the channel. I've not been doing them, but hopefully I will start to do a bit more British horror films from the sort of 60s and 70s period, so things by Hammer and Amicus and Tygon and that sort of stuff. Probably, primarily. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Thank you very much. Please do like, subscribe, tell all your friends. It does help. I really appreciate the support, actually, in all seriousness. Yeah, it's lovely to hear feedback as well, so thank you. See you next time.